I was reborn, and I refused to love my cold-hearted wife again. My wife was incredibly cold and aloof. In our 50 years of marriage, she never once said she loved me until the day I lay dying at the age of 70. I forced out one last smile and asked her, "In our 50 years of marriage, have you ever loved me, even for a single day?" Seeing her hesitate, I already had my answer. I glanced at the descendants Lysia and I had brought into this world, standing in the hazy room. And finally, I left her with my last words. If we could do it all over again, I would never want to love you again. With that, I closed my eyes and lost consciousness. But when I woke up again, I'd actually been reborn and sent back to my high school days. In this life, I decided I would never get involved with Lysia again. But 3 months before the college entrance exams, she suddenly transferred to our class, and she insisted on sitting right next to me. I instinctively shifted my chair, wanting to get as far away from her as possible, but she grabbed me by the collar. "Yang Jian, why did you die so fast?" I hadn't even answered your question yet. I took a moment to get used to this youthful body and glanced at the classmates diligently listening to the lecture around me. This wasn't a dream. Perhaps because of my intense final wish right before I died in my past life, I was truly reborn. Since God gave me this second chance, then in this life, I will never mess with Lysia again. In my previous life, because the Lee family's company ran into some trouble, the Lee family proposed a marriage alliance with my Yang family, so they could secure a partnership with our company. Lysia was the famous genius beauty of First High, a top-tier straight-A student. She even became an international master violinist later on. Meanwhile, I was the dead last slacker, sitting in the back row by the window. I barely got into a third-rate college. After graduating, I followed my family's arrangements, went to learn the ropes at our family company, and eventually took over my dad's position. Because Lysia was both beautiful and sensible, my dad happily agreed to our marriage, and I was more than willing to. But back then, Lysia already had someone she liked. The Lee family forcefully tore them apart and made her marry me instead. After we got married, she was never happy. No matter how good I was to her or how much I did for her, she never once gave me a smile. That's why I asked her on my deathbed if she had ever loved me for even a single day in those 50 years. The truth proved that even 50 years wasn't enough to move her heart. In this life, I won't bother her anymore, but I won't interfere with the business partnership between our families. Because a few years from now, the Lee family's company will grow beyond anyone's expectations, and the Yang family will reap a lot of dividends from it. So partnering with them is perfectly fine. I won't get in the way of that. I just don't need the Lee family to sell their daughter to me. What I need to do in this life is seize the time and study hard to make up for the regrets of my past life, and use the 50 years of knowledge I've accumulated to fulfill my dad's dream of taking our company's products to the international market. So in the time leading up to the college entrance exams, I studied like a madman. Seeing me act like a completely different person, my classmates were shocked. "Yang Jian, you don't even play basketball after class anymore. You don't even go play Valorant after school. Are you possessed by a ghost or something?" I time traveled back from 50 years in the future. Not getting into a top-tier university was my biggest regret in my past life, so I'm making up for it now. Naturally, my deskmate looked at me like I was insane. A dead last slacker from the back row by the window, wanting to get into a top-tier university, was pure delusion. Half a month later, my dad called and told me to come home early after school. We were having guests over for dinner. He also told me to pick up some gifts a girl might like. I knew Lysia was coming. In my past life, I figured since we were still high schoolers, buying lipsticks or designer bags wouldn't be appropriate. So I racked my brain and bought several huge bags of gifts, plushies, crafts, you name it. But in the end, Lysia just gave them a cold glance and said, "Childish. Being with someone like you in the future, I can't even imagine how miserable my life will be." But in this life, I still bought several huge bags. Only this time, it was even more childish stuff. RC race cars, Barbie dolls, and so on. Almost entirely toys meant for little kids. I loved the massive bags of gifts back home. When my dad saw me return and noticed all the stuff in my hands, he quickly winked at me. Then, pretending not to know, he said, "Son, it's your first time meeting Lysia, and you brought her so many gifts. How come you've never been this thoughtful with me?" I couldn't be bothered to entertain him. I just carried the huge bag straight into the living room and casually dumped the toys out. The wheel of an RC car even snapped off from a fall. I dusted off my hands and looked at the aloof Lysia. "Here, my dad told me to get you a gift." I was short on time, so I just grabbed these from a street stall. Otherwise, I would have gone to a big supermarket. The quality there's a bit better. Seeing the floor covered in toys meant for 3-year-olds. My dad was so furious, he grabbed a spatula to hit me. But I wasn't scared. I lived to be 70 in my past life. My dad isn't even 40 right now. Technically speaking, I'm the elder here. I flopped down onto the sofa, crossed my legs, and used the exact same tone I used to scold my grandson in my past life. "You're a grown adult, yet you don't act like one at all. What a disgrace." My dad, Lysia, and her parents all froze in shock. After a moment, my dad let out an awkward laugh. "Well, my son and I have a great relationship. We usually joke around like this when there are no outsiders, so he clearly doesn't see you guys as outsiders. Hearing this, Lysia's parents beamed with joy. Only Lysia kept a straight, icy face. She probably thought that in this life, I'd still be willing to become family with her. But in this life, I have no intention of wasting another 50 years on someone who doesn't love me. I walked up to her and said coldly, "Since you don't like the gifts I bought, I'll just pack them up and play with them myself." I reached out to gather them up, but to my surprise, she snatched a Barbie doll right out of my hands. And for the first time ever, she revealed a smile I had never seen before. I love it. I was absolutely stunned. She smiled at me. How is that possible? In the 50 years I've known her, this was the very first time she smiled at me. Is she not Lysia? Or was she possessed by someone else? Or maybe this Barbie doll really hit the spot for her. I couldn't be bothered to overthink it. No matter what her deal was, I wasn't going to have anything to do with her in this life. Sorry, I bought that Barbie for myself. The rest are yours. I thought that would definitely piss her off and lead to us cutting ties forever. But unexpectedly, she just held on to the toys I bought, still wearing that faint smile. In my past life, I bought her jewelry worth millions and designer bags. Yet she never said an extra word to me. Could it be that her true passion is children's toys? I found her completely incomprehensible. Dinner started. My dad and her parents kept trying to play matchmaker, but I remained completely indifferent, though she didn't say anything either. I knew she was deeply resisting this in her heart, because she had a childhood friend she grew up with, a year younger than her. In my past life, I heard Lysia was planning to confess to him right after high school graduation. My appearance tore them apart. So in this life, I'll gladly step aside and let you two be together. I just hope to have absolutely nothing to do with Lysia ever again. It wasn't until midnight that their family of 3 finally got ready to leave. I hadn't spoken a single word to her the entire time. My dad dragged me to the door to see them off. Suddenly, Lysia said she forgot her backpack. She left it on the sofa. My dad told me to go grab it for her. I reluctantly went and brought her backpack out and handed it to her. She looked at me peacefully and said, "Thank you." She actually said thank you to me. This was truly the biggest joke I've heard. In both of my lifetimes, my expression remained cold. I ignored her, turned around, and went straight back to my room. Behind me, I could hear my dad desperately trying to explain. He's just been in a bad mood lately. He's usually never like this. Please don't let this affect the marriage between our families. The next day, I went to school as usual. But halfway through the morning, the homeroom teacher announced that we had a new transfer student. When the person walked in, I was completely dumbfounded because the new student was none other than Lysia. The teacher gave a brief introduction and told Lysia to take a seat in the front row. Lysia's grades were at the very top of her previous school, first high, so the teacher arranged for her to sit right next to the class president. But to everyone's surprise, Lysia shook her head and walked straight toward me. She held out her hand and said with a polite smile, "We meet again. Can I sit next to you?" I froze. Was she talking to me before I could process it? Lysia asked again. "Yang Jian, can I sit next to you?" The homeroom teacher hurried over. He quickly told her, "Yang is the worst student in the class. Don't sit with him. Go sit with the class president. He's ranked first in the whole school. You two can study together and help each other improve." I wasn't mad hearing that. After all, it was the truth. Though I wasn't a bad kid in high school, I skipped class all the time just to play basketball. Lysia rejected the teacher's offer. She smiled and said, "Thank you for your kindness, sir, but I'll sit with Yang Jian. We know each other." The teacher frowned, then shot me a warning glare. "Don't you dare drag down her studies." Lysia's grades were good enough to aim for the top scorer in the city. In my past life, although she didn't get first place, she still ranked third. The only reason she dropped to third was because she found out about the arranged marriage with my family, which tore her away from her childhood sweetheart. So she underperformed during the exams. That's why the teacher treated her like a precious treasure. If Lysia became the city's top scorer, the teacher would instantly ascend to greatness. His reputation would skyrocket, and his prestige in the school would go through the roof. But none of that was my business. In this life, I just want to get into a decent college, study finance properly, and use my 50 years of future knowledge to take my family's business to the next level. Thinking of this, my expression turned cold. I reached out and blocked the empty seat next to me. I'm used to sitting alone. I don't want anyone sitting next to me. Besides, Lysia, we didn't even know each other before this. We only met once last night. Go find another seat. I don't want to drag down your grades. The entire classroom felt dead silent. No one expected me to reject a school idol level beauty like her. Lysia looked stunned for a second, but she quickly reverted to the person I knew, that high and mighty, domineering attitude. She slammed her backpack onto the desk, swatted my hand away, and sat right down. "You don't own this seat. I'll sit wherever I want."